Well, good evening and welcome to the May 18th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. We're going to start the meeting as we always do with a confirmation posting of the roll call. All planning commissioners are present and the minutes and packages have in fact been posted.
The agenda has been posted in accordance with open meeting law.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is a general public comment period. And this is a public comment period that's open to any item on the agenda. However, I would note that there is only one item on the agenda, and that agenda item is in fact a public hearing. So you will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public hearing portion of that agenda item, which will immediately follow the staff report and the discussion by the applicant, which often provides good information upon which to base comments. However, we'll open this public comment period up to anyone who would wish to be heard at this time.
Good evening. I'm Donald McGregor, 310 La Plata Place here in Boulder City. And my property abuts Lot 10 on the proposed platting. And I just have a few concerns that I would like the Planning Commission to consider. The first is the height of the proposed walls. At the back of my property, as I understand it, there's going to be a 6-foot wall that's going to step in 6 feet. Then there's going to be a 12-foot wall. So that, from my yard, that's an 18-foot wall. But the lot that's going to be developed there, 11, anybody who takes that lot is naturally going to have some kind of barrier on top of that wall. Otherwise, they're going to fall off, a 12-foot drop. So I'm concerned about the overall height of the walls that are being proposed. I'd like the Planning Commission to discuss and consider some shortening of the walls if at all possible. The other thing is the amount of dust and possible asbestos that may get kicked up as this proceeds. The developer has been dropping clean fill in the area in preparation for this platting. And if there was ever a water truck wetting it, it was never there when I saw the fill being dropped. And I know that there's a considerable amount of dust that gets kicked up. As you know, we have a lot of wind here from time to time. And how I can tell is because I have a pool in my backyard, and the amount of silt that goes in the pool because it's getting blown over the fence is considerable. So I would like some kind of mitigation in terms of when the construction is going on. And if these are going to be empty lots, that there is something that can hold the dust down from 15 lots from, as I say, blowing into my yard. The other thing is I'm not sure in terms of the actual development. I know that this is a pretty much of a monolithic piece of granite that's going to be developed. And I have not seen anything. I didn't actually pursue it to find out, but I would like to know, is there going to be any jackhammering? Is there going to be any dynamiting? Is there going to be anything that's going to be required to level that piece of granite? Because I'm sure that the granite runs under my property and under my foundation. I'd be very concerned if there was going to be anything that's going to be disturbing, my foundation, cracks in the house, and those kinds of things. The other thing is, I think that there's a proposed roadway into the development. I know Northbridge, but I think that there's also going to be from Arizona into the development. And my concern with that is, if you drive over to Arizona, and just as a side note, I live on La Plata, but my carport is in the back. I don't have driveway access to my house, so I'm in the back. And I come down Arizona, and there's parking on both sides of the street. It's a very, it's one of these deals in town where you got to pull over to let somebody else pass and so on. It's not really designed for any kind of a thoroughfare that's going to pick up additional traffic. The other thing is, as you turn at Arizona, down the alleyway, which is designated as Boulder Green for some reason, as you go down that roadway, already there are people that use that alley, and I think the police need to set up a speed trap, because people are flying down that alleyway way too fast, and now we're going to have a potential of more traffic. And the other thing that I have learned, when I get to the end of the alleyway leaving, there's a wall to my right. And when I'm leaving, I make sure I beep my horn, because any number of times, I've been here since 2010, any number of times when I pull down the end of the alleyway, there'll be people on bicycles, or there'll people that'll be jogging, walking in the morning and so on. And it's just a dangerous situation. And finally, I would like, if at all possible, the Planning Commission to require that a bond be posted with a third-party, reputable AAA construction bond company, so that if there, in the event that there is any damage that's done to any of the properties, that there is indemnity to the homeowners. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard at this moment, at this time?
My name is Andrew Ubbins. I live on Avenue M in Arizona. We all live in Boulder City for different reasons, and a lot of those reasons surround that Boulder City is a small town, and we all pretty much want to preserve that. There's several concerns with this project that we have. There's several environmental concerns that include dust from the construction. There's going to be noise. We already brought up the natural asbestos that's out there. Also, this project is going to displace a lot of pests that are out in the desert: scorpions, snakes, spiders, coyotes. I have 2 small children. I have 6-year-old twins that play in our backyard, and they play in the desert. And the last thing we need is more dangerous pests being dispersed into the community. There's also other wildlife that's going to be displaced. There's cottontail rabbits, jackrabbits, quail, and other animals that are out there. We have concerns for the structural integrity of the existing homes around this project, whether there's going to be jackhammering or blasting to break through this granite. My house has a custom-built fireplace that was built by hand with rocks that were brought in. My concern is that if the foundation is shaking, that there's going to be damage that might be irreparable to this fireplace and to the structure of our house. And we keep getting bombarded in the media and through government agencies about a water shortage at the lake. We're down to 1 boat ramp open at the lake. At some point in southern Nevada and Boulder City, we need to take a stand and say that we need to stop developing until we get our water crisis under control. Don't put further restrictions on us because builders want to make more money and put more houses up. There was a recent article in the Boulder City Review about a community risk assessment that was done by the fire department. Per the chief, half of all residents already live outside the recommended 4-minute travel time for the fire department. For public safety services already stretched too thin, why are we adding to the problem by building more homes? We recently had a subdivision put up in Storybrooke with 127 homes. Additional proposed development at Track 350 of 177 lots, and the city's also talking about building another shopping center. Depending on where you look, what number you get varies, but the Boulder City population is between 16 and 17,000 people. The average household in America is 2.6 people. Do the math. You add all these developments to our current population, and over the last couple of years, that's about a 4.7% increase in the population. That's a rather large population increase in just a couple of years. It's almost 5%. This same developer has an unfinished project at Arizona and Avenue I. My other concern is that he's going to come in, he's going to tear down this mountain, he's going to ruin the land, and he's just going to leave empty lots there. I'm not against someone making money and doing what they want with their private property. I completely support that. I just feel like there's too many homes being put on this lot. I think the lot should be bigger and there should be less homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard at this time?
Good evening. I live at 306 La Plata Place in Boulder City.
Could you
My
state
name is
your
Vern
name?
Stewart, and I live at 306 La Plata Place in Boulder City. My home is sitting directly in the heart of this project, which I'm going to be looking at an 18-foot block wall in my backyard, from my back door to the back wall. My concern is when he starts to jackhammer or dynamite, which I don't really want him to do dynamite at all, that's too close to the houses. If my foundation gets cracked, or my drywall gets cracked, or the stucco gets cracked, who am I going to go to get it repaired? I would like to have a third-party bond set up, insurance bond, so I don't have to deal with the developer. I just have to call an insurance company, have them come out and inspect. If we get pictures before and after the construction, that would be great. If he wants to pay for it, that'd be great. I already have pictures of my own, and if the insurance company accepts those, that's good for me. The other concern I have is, I'm lost track. That's it, mainly, those are my main concerns. Scorpions, snakes, I know they're gonna be leaving the desert and coming toward our properties, because they gotta go somewhere. Coyotes, I have one dog, I know the other neighbors have 3 or 4 dogs, a couple of cats, you know what I mean? So, that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gerald Nelson. I live at 304 La Plata Place. First of all, I echo everything that Vern Stewart just said. So in the interest of brevity, just pretend I said all of that also. Working backwards. I agree with the idea of a third-party bond. We all know what it's like after damages are done to try to go after somebody, to try to get remuneration. It'd be much better if we could rest a little easier. And the reason for that especially is the foundation concerns that others have said. Rodent control. I'm especially worried about snakes and scorpions. My son is a 31-year-old autistic individual who spends the majority of the year in the backyard for 8 to 12 hours. Comes in for bathroom breaks, obviously, and meals, but he takes his meals out there. I've never had any kind of snake problem before, and I thought I was blessed because of that. But it'd be very concerning with the amount of time he spends out there. Grandchildren coming over, obviously, a lot of us probably have that concern. Dust, I have the same concerns of silt in my hot tub and just blowing around and in your face, and God help us if it has asbestos content in it, which I've heard, at least, I haven't researched this, but I've heard that there's a lot of asbestos in that desert. Oh, I'm concerned about the size of the lots also, which is the reason I believe that the developer traditionally uses these less wide streets, these little narrow streets, because it's all about the square footage and trying to maximize your profit. And I also, echoing again, I am nothing against capitalism or somebody making money on their property. But I just really think that these things need to be addressed in advance, because trying to fix it afterwards is always a nightmare. And, you know, some of us don't have long enough to live to drag out a lawsuit for 20 years. Third-party bond, foundations, asbestos, dust. I know I have 5 minutes, so that's why I'm sorry for the uncomfortable silence, but I don't want to just shut it down and then go, oh, I was supposed to say this. I only moved here 3 years ago from Chicago. I was a police officer. My dream was I chose this town amongst thousands, you know? It took years to narrow it down, and a huge portion of that was well, population control isn't exactly the right phrase. That sounds a little scary. But what's the word? What's the concept of keeping the town from being overdeveloped? A good quality of life. There's a more proper phrase. But what? No growth. No growth, yeah. Or small growth. I know population, suddenly I sounded like I'm some kind of crazy Nazi or something. And I just cut my hair. It's the worst time to say something like that with this skinhead. Anyway, I wanted a small town life. And I know, because I'm old enough now, I'm 60 years old, I know that small towns become big towns. And I thought it was so unique that Boulder City had this policy of, you know, of small growth. And so I'm personally disappointed, of course, that instead of having a desert view, I'm going to be looking at somebody's giant wall and they're going to be staring at me. But that's not a community issue. That's just my own personal thing. I have to live with that. But the idea of building small units, little streets, the extra traffic, it concerns me also. And can I ask questions while I'm up here? Anybody want to volunteer to answer? Not during this. Okay. All right. So I hope that the planning committee and whatever the other city fathers are involved in this, and mothers, sorry, for my hippie days before I became a police officer. It's a Grateful Dead phrase. We'll actually be addressing all of these concerns that we've all brought up, which is what I was going to ask, but I phrased it as a statement instead of a question. And I guess that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Vern Stewart. I live at 306 La Plata Place. Can I speak
Are we
again? I
allowed
forgot.
to?
No?
We will have each person at any of the public hearing opportunities allowed one opportunity, but there will be the public hearing during the actual, during that agenda item. So please feel free to come up at that point.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Hello, Stuart Adams, 540 Avenue M. I'm opposed to the project. The project does not conform to the two existing neighborhoods. It doesn't conform to the terrain that's there. Looks like there's 15 to 20 foot cut and fills, and as mentioned, perhaps national occurring asbestos. In order to make this grade, yes, there will be hoe ramming forever and the scratching of an excavator bucket going on endlessly. Who knows how long, because it does seem massive. The utilities that I'm not sure, but it looks like they're coming up from Arizona, and there's a lot of underground markings on our street. So I don't know if that's in fact connected to this. When they started down by Avenue I, they put maybe 400 feet of empty conduit, but it took them months to do it. So I'm just concerned, and all of this just seems to be a big displacement for everybody in these neighborhoods. Just getting everything, the equipment and the material to the project, labors, it's all got to come up residential streets, either M, Arizona, the alley. Yeah, and then the traffic afterwards will be the same. I forgot about the alley, but they come up Avenue M. For some reason, we all have like a Garmin GPS in us. We go to the most direct way of traveling. So people leaving this project, yes, a couple cars will go down Northridge, but the majority of them are going to come down, are going to go Arizona, Avenue M, coming back. So, because I already get a lot of that already from people. They want to go downtown, Credit Union, Lakeside, a lot of parts, and the streets are not conducive. As mentioned, two cars can't even pass on Arizona or Avenue M at the same time. So, and again, we're allowing for the equipment and everything to do this, and then afterwards, whatever cars and delivery trucks will be there. We also have, I noticed that, looks like Arizona's going to be a little bit wider up there, if I read it right. The existing Arizona is narrow. And then it opens up wider again as you get downtown. And that doesn't seem like good plan, going to wide, funneling everything down to the smaller street and then back up to the bigger street. So again, I am opposed to this. So thank you.
Heather Evans, 499 Avenue M. My concern is for the safety of my kids. We walk to school every day, Thursday and Friday. We moved to this town knowing that we wanted a small town feel, and I love the fact that I can walk my kids to and from school every day. With this developer's previous project on on Arizona and there were multiple days where it became hazardous for my children and myself due to gaping holes in the street. Unfinished sidewalks that were left that way for months on end, poor road signage. So I'm just voicing my concerns over the construction, the ability to walk past safely on these streets, as well as the fact that my kids play in my backyard. I'm concerned over the amount of dust, the natural asbestos. I'm concerned for my animals, all of the above. It's a poor placement for so many lots. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Morton. I live on Avenue I. And I've been right across the street from RPS's current project, which is the old hospital lot, which I'm going to reiterate what she just said. Seemed to be a lot of unsafe conditions. The roads were closed for days at a time, 24 hours a day, uncovered holes, unprofessional crews. They weren't, they had no markings on the trucks. And I complained to the city several times about some of the safety issues that she just brought up, concern-wise on the sidewalks. But this project over in Northridge, I think the scope of it is more than just 300 feet away. I think this affects Arizona, Avenue I, L, K, M, Northridge, La Plata, Don Vicente, and Wyoming Street. Where is he going to stage the construction vehicles? Are they going to be traveling up and down Arizona Street to go back to the hospital lot? The construction traffic, the length of the project, the interruption of services, garbage, mail, repair services. If you go on Amazon, they're not coming in there. They didn't come on Avenue I. They didn't come on the alleys of Arizona. I complained to the city about why am I paying garbage fees, and I was told, what's my problem? So, the disposal company said, hey, I got to go to the city, because they weren't in charge of the billing. I was told by an RPS representative that they would take my garbage for me, but of course that never happened. So anyway, You know, there's already trucks, garbage trucks using Arizona as we speak, as somebody else just said, to dump fill in this project that's up and coming. You know, so I asked the planning commission to make RPS bring this back a little bit, resubmit a plan that shows the overall scope of what is going to happen with this project, because it's a lot larger than just 300 feet away, or La Plata, or Northridge, or the end of Arizona. It affects a large section of neighborhoods around this area. So, you know, please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to be heard at this time or prefer? All right.
Hi, my name is Christina Reischer. I live at 308 La Plata. I have the similar concerns as everybody else here. Our foundation, if anything happens there, dust, the high walls, also who would be responsible for the maintenance and any damages to those walls during all this time. Also, there's a lot of people that have access to the desert that like to walk their dogs, go for hikes or whatever out in the desert. Will there be any sort of walkway planned in this so people can actually get out to the desert and go out and explore and do whatever they need to do? I also have concerns with the power poles that need to be removed. Several of our homes, one mine included, they have not come and done any of the power underneath the homes. None of that's been transferred yet. So when will that be done? Also the timing of when that will be done. We're coming up on summer now, so when those power poles are removed, will there be any sort of power outages, any sort of anything like that? And I think that's all my concerns for now. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one else, let's move.
Good evening. My name is Blair Davenport, and I'm a member of the Boulder City Historic Preservation Committee. And in looking at the drawings, it appears that this 300-foot buffer or blob, whatever that is potentially going to move or butts, perhaps, or it's actually inside the historic district. And as far as I know, the Boulder City Historic District. And as far as I know, the Historic Preservation Committee has not looked at this to see if in fact this does, if this project will or will not affect the historic district. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to comments, written comments. Okay, let's move on. Sorry, Holly. Let's move on to phone lines for anyone who might be live streaming this meeting. Please recognize that there's about a 15 to 20 second delay, and so we're going to pause. If you have any comments in your live streaming, the number to call in to at this moment is 702-589-9629. And so we'll wait a moment for them to call in. Hearing no comments. Whoop.
Public comment.
Hi there. I'd like to make a comment regarding the new development, please.
Okay, state your name for the record, please.
Joyce Camille Ariati.
Okay, go ahead.
My concern is that, I mean, I know I don't live in that particular neighborhood. However, I do live on Utah Street, which is right next to the project where there's constant construction equipment. And my biggest concern is we walk our kids and our dogs, and there's been if the intention is to use that construction site as a place to store and keep and put the construct equipment for this project, it's going to be in our neighborhood, in the Wyoming, the Utah, the Park Street, and it's not going to just be limited to impacting the neighborhood over on La Plata and L and M, but it's going to have wider scope and bigger impact. And I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the lot size and square footage of the homes that are going in there, because I think being part of the historic district, I know that I just saw that the person from the Historic Preservation Committee make a comment. I think it's important to preserve what Boulder City is all about, and I think that it isn't about putting in as many homes as can fit, but people move to Boulder City because they don't want to be in Henderson. They don't want to look at a block wall. They want to look at the desert. They want to look at the lake. They want to have room for their kids. They want to have space to walk their dogs safely. And I think that this embrace what Boulder City neighborhoods are all about. Especially historic neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is the line open?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll wait just another moment. All right, I think we've provided ample opportunity. Madam City Clerk, do we have any comments that have been submitted to the city?
There was one submitted, but he spoke during public comment, Mr. Stewart, Vern Stewart.
All right. With that, we'll close the initial public comment period for this meeting and move on to agenda item 1 for possible action, and that would be the approval of the minutes of the April 2022 regular meeting. Move this to the commission. Anyone have any comments?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Going once? Anyway, all in,
Aye.
everyone agrees with the agenda. Aye. Any nay? All right. The minutes stand as agenda item number 2 for possible action. This has to do with RPS Properties LLC. It's resolution number 1211, Diamond Ridge, BC, number 114. It's the north portion of Track 6. This is a public hearing and a recommendation to the City Council on a tentative map for a proposed 15-lot subdivision in the R110 single-family residential zone. Look towards city staff for a report.
Thank you. To start off, as an update, as many of the abutting residents will know, this same subdivision was approved by the city for a tentative map in 2016. However, as the developer did not proceed with getting the final map approved and recorded within 4 years, per the provisions of state law, that the tentative map had expired. And therefore now he's applied for a new tentative map. It's just been given a new subdivision number. And for the most part, the proposal is the same as it was 6 years ago. This 5 1/3 acre property is vacant, and subdivision of land is a legal right when the new lots or units conform to the existing zoning on the property and the adopted regulations of the city. It's privately owned land, it's zoned single-family residential, and therefore the city cannot stop development of privately owned land when it conforms to the city code. A tentative map gives the developer official approval to proceed with a final map, which can then be recorded and allows for the sales of lots. The city's growth control ordinance does not govern the subdivision of land. It only governs the issuance of building permits. And so in the future, as homeowners will buy the lots and propose a custom home on the lots, each one of those will get an allotment through the growth control ordinance. And for reference, as Boulder City's growth control ordinance for the better part of 40 years has limited such homes to approximately 120 a year, because there are exceptions allowed for development on older lots, but the city's growth rate has been far, far, far below what would be allowed under our growth control ordinance. And therefore, the addition of 15 homes in no way is going to be a problem with regard to the growth control ordinance. The applicant has submitted the tentative map for a 15-lot residential subdivision in compliance with the R110 zone standards. The minimum lot size in that zone is at least 10,000 square feet, and the average lot size in this development is about 13,000 square feet. So although there are a few lots that are just at the 10,000 square foot size, most of them are quite larger than that. As noted, all of the lots are at or over the minimum size and width. The density is less than 3 units per acre. And the lots will be served by extensions of both Arizona Street and Northridge will be stubbed to the vacant city land to the north as it currently is now. In accordance with code requirements, the developer will also improve the existing portion of Arizona Street leading into the new subdivision. Regarding grading, subject parcel has existing very hilly portions that are much higher than the surrounding lots. So there will be a significant amount of cut and fill on the property so that the new homes will have positive drainage towards the streets and to provide for proper sloping of the streets. The staff report includes a background as a summary of grading as it relates to the neighboring lots, and also a sheet which compares the pad grades of the new homes with those on the abutting lots as compared to the 2016 version of the map. And again, for the most part, it's the same. There are just a few small differences as noted on that map. An addendum that I provided to the Planning Commission this evening to the staff report notes that instead of one exception request being requested or for recommendation to the council, instead of 2, it will only be 1. With regard to the street grades, and taking a closer look at the code, as the code specifies that the Planning Commission only needs to make take an action on street grades if anything over 15% is proposed. And all of the grades in this subdivision are 10% or less. Most of them are in the 6 to 7% range. And so per the code, anything under 15% is up to approval of the city engineer, and the city engineer has proposed the proposed grading plan as before in 2016. There are some differences from the 2016 plan, and one of them was that they solved a previous issue regarding the sidewalk ramps, because from your the background information you have in 2016, there was a concern about ADA compliance for the ramps. That's been solved, and that's why it's not an issue this time around. Therefore, the only exception request that per code the Planning Commission needs to make a recommendation on is with regard to matching the right-of-way width for the streets. And for the benefit of the audience, a right-of-way is greater than the road width. The right-of-way includes not just the road, but also the sidewalks, and in half of the town, it includes land beyond the sidewalks. I'm constantly talking to homeowners and having to let them know if they're in certain parts of town that are older, that their property line does not go to the sidewalk. The property line is 3 feet back of sidewalk, or for a number of subdivisions, including where Northridge is, the property lines are 4.5 feet back of sidewalk. But for the last couple of decades or more, the city had changed its street standards so that the right-of-way is less, but the street width is the same. It just means that in this new subdivision, people will own to the back of sidewalk. The road widths will be the same, so these will not be narrow roads. And in fact, because the portion of Arizona at this location is actually substandard and smaller in width, it will actually widen a bit as it goes into the new subdivision, because the developer will have to meet the current standards for that. The staff report, then has additional information, additional charts and backup information, just trying to recall some of the comments that have been made. This property is not within the historic district. The 300-foot reference is simply what the city code requires for notifying surrounding properties when a tentative map, is proposed. State law doesn't require any notification of surrounding property owners for subdivision maps, precisely because subdivision of land is a legal right when it complies with zoning. The property is not within the historic district and under the current code. Therefore, the Historic Preservation Committee has no authority or jurisdiction for property outside the historic district. That may change in the future, but it's not the case now. And with that, I know the applicant is here. I'm not sure if his engineer, oh, okay, yes. Sorry, didn't recognize you, Ray. He's got a larger copy of the map available if anybody needs to see that. But a number of other items that the residents brought up would probably be best addressed by the applicant. But we also have members of our Public Works Department here who can answer any questions you may have about grading and other issues brought up.
Thank you, Susan. I'd like to start with just a couple of questions, and many of these were raised by the residents here. What is the city's responsibility, I think is the right term, regarding dust mitigation for construction projects within the city?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that question.
Thank you.
For the benefit of the public, Michael Mays, Community Development Director. So with respect to dust mitigation, the Clark County Dust Control regulates mitigation of dust throughout the county. In order for anybody to do grading and construction, they're required to get a dust control permit from Clark County. To get that permit, they have to submit a dust mitigation plan that talks about how they're going to ensure that the construction doesn't generate dust and negatively impact surrounding property owners or the overall neighborhood. As people may have seen with construction activity throughout the county, one of the ways that contractors mitigate dust is they have water tanks, and whenever they're grading, they have the water tanks following to make sure that dust is not becoming airborne. The Clark County Dust Control has inspectors that monitor the situation and ensure compliance, and if contractors are not complying, they can be fined. There is a Clark County hotline and website complaint basis for complaints with dust control with construction activities. But absolutely, with city staff as well and our inspectors, we will work closely with the county staff to ensure compliance with local projects.
Thank you. One more question for staff, so I'm not sure who. What are our requirements in the city for bonding on a project of this nature? Do we, as a city of Boulder City, require the bond, or when it's on private property, how does this work?
Jim Keane, your city engineer. For subdivisions, yes, we do require bonding, but it's for the public improvements, the items that will be turned over to the city for maintenance.
All right, so we do not require a bond for the types of issues that we've heard tonight?
No, we don't.
Local, okay. Thank you. One more question. Was there any sort of a traffic study performed or any extrapolation from previous traffic studies up to this time, up to this point?
Jim Keane, city engineer again. Since this is only a 15-lot subdivision, we did not require a traffic study. To compare it to something like Storybook, which was 127 lots, we did require them to do a traffic study, but that's because it was a more significant amount of traffic that will generate. 15 lots really doesn't generate that much traffic.
Do we have any sense?
For the traffic study for Storybook, they generated from 127 lots in the peak hour in the AM, they generated 128 trips, which would be 128 vehicles in that hour. So if you correlate that to a 15-lot subdivision, they'll do 15 to 16 in the peak hour. So. Oh, so Ray is saying residential's one trip per house.
During those peak periods?
During the
like
peak hour, yes.
Morning, rush to work, evening, return kind of thing?
Exactly, yep.
I see. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll turn it over to the rest of the commission. Does anyone have questions for the city staff? Yes, indeed, Ms. Bonner.
Just one question. Sue, did you say this is definitely not in the historic district?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nate? Does anyone else have questions for staff?
Yes, I have
And Tom?
several.
Very good.
I guess one of the first questions I have is for staff in page 11. The top of the page where it says the map for the most part is the same as what was reviewed 2016. With regard to that, one of the things that came up in 2016 was the ADA concerns. And in reading this, I'm a little unclear where that actually sits right now. And that would be one of my questions.
As the city engineer could provide more detail, but as noted in the report and as I summarized, the issues have been resolved. They have done a different design for the sidewalk wraps that comply with ADA requirements. And so it's a non-issue at this point.
Okay. Question on the 6% issue and with regard to the statute, which says that will be approved for only such distances that as topographical conditions will make a lesser grade impractical. What is the impractical nature of a lesser grade here?
It's not that a lesser grade would be, in normal circumstances, would be impractical. It's just that given the existing topography of the land, that's why the code references that grades over 6% can be acceptable because you have to balance basically a property that with the hill, the existing topography makes much of it unbuildable. So in order to balance those grades, it's impractical to try to get the street grades flat, at the less than 1% that you would normally have for a normal site. And so that's why the code allows for the city engineer, to use his discretion to approve segments of streets at higher than 6% grades up to 15% without planning commission approval.
Yes, but the issue of the practicality has to do with the cost of the project.
It also has to do with the existing topography.
Right. I'm not sure I understand the rationale that's explained in the extension of Arizona Street. And basically what it says that you're transitioning to a wider street within the new development. In other words, the existing portion of Arizona is narrower within the 60-foot right-of-way, which will transition into a wider street within a 51-foot right-of-way. Well, it would do that whether it was a 51-foot right-of-way or 60-foot. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. With regards to the poles and so on, I assume there's some poles that are going to be removed. I think there's a reference to some underground service that's going to be put in. Is that part of that, the utilities responsibility, and part of that the developers?
Jim Keane, the city engineer. Those existing power poles out there are actually located on the private property of the developer. They're outside the easement that's there. So we have started work to redo those electric services for the houses that are served off of that line. And where we ran those down La Plata, we still have, I believe, 3 houses to connect. And then the city's electric will be taken off of that. Then it's going to be the developer's responsibility to work with the other utilities, cable company, telephone company, whoever's on there, to relocate their items and then take the poles down.
Thank you. On page 30, I had a question on with regard to the pad grades. And maybe it's somewhere else in there, that there's some information regarding those that has yet to be delineated.
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
I think there's some reference somewhere in the document about there's maybe I can find it. It had to do with some information wasn't available. Maybe it wasn't on the grades. Maybe it was on the slopes or something else. If you put a 60-foot right-of-way in, according to this, you would eliminate 2 lots from the subdivision. Is that correct?
I couldn't estimate that. It would involve redesign of the lots, but you can't necessarily just automatically assume 2 lots would be lost. I assume the developer
on page
would do a redesign.
Okay. But on 33, that's what the reference is to the right-of-way, and it talks about the net
is that what the developer's engineer said?
Yeah, eliminating 2 lots from the subdivision.
If that's what the engineer estimated, that may be true, but again, the city's right-of-way standard changed decades ago to a 51-foot standard. And the code, it normally requires matching, but again, it's no functional difference to how it connects to the other streets. The street width will be just as wide or wider, the sidewalks will match.
Okay. So the basic constraints then, in terms of number of lots, would be the 60 feet right away according to the report.
If that's what the developer estimated, yes, he would have to, if he had to meet the 60-foot right-of-way, which doesn't benefit the city in any way, it would affect his lot sizes, so he would have to do a redesign.
Right, then it would affect the landscaping area.
What do you mean landscaping area?
Well, I think it references it in here about the 4.5 feet or whatever it is.
Well, the difference is that in a 60-foot right-of-way, the city owns the 4.5 feet behind the sidewalk, and with a 51-foot right-of-way, there will be a 4.5-foot easement behind the sidewalk.
So the reference in there on landscaping really isn't germane?
Probably not, no. I mean, if there's a 60-foot right-of-way, it means the front yard would look a little bigger because the setback for the house is measured to the property line, not to the back of sidewalk.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, all the walls meet city codes in regard to height.
Yes.
Or we'd be voting on that, right?
Right. The only times the city has a restriction on wall height are for the front yards. We limit those to 4 feet above grade. And actually, as one of the neighbors brought up, most likely the homeowners will want boundary walls around their lots as well. Those will be limited to 6 feet in height. But as one neighbor pointed out, yes, that means the neighbors on La Plata will be looking at rather tall sets of walls behind them because this property, those lots will be much higher than their lots. But for retaining walls in a side or rear yard, there is no limit on height. A retaining wall is as large as, a homeowner or developer needs it to be in order to retain a certain amount of earth. They will have to be engineered, so that they will support the amount of earth that is put up against them.
And then because there's no CC&Rs or HOAs, the individual homeowners will be responsible for any maintenance or...
Right, and that would be an interesting issue because it'll be a challenge for those buyers to maintain anything between the double retaining walls at the back of their lots.
Any more questions, Mr. Rudd? Okay. This one, oh, nope. All right. Well, let's bring it to the applicant. Would you wish to be heard on this and provide some additional clarification? We certainly, so please, of course, state your name and your function.
Ray Fredrickson, Performance Engineering, 4525 West Hacienda, Las Vegas, 89118. It's always fun to come here because I feel like Susan does my work for me. And I don't really have a lot to add to what she said. I think the main points from our standpoint are, we were here 6 years ago. It's pretty much exactly the same plan that was approved 6 years ago. Because of, I think, development costs and power costs to get there, Randy had stopped the project, and now that power is closer, so the project's more feasible at this point. So that's why we're bringing this project back in front of you guys. I mean, other than minor cleanups, the map, everything is exactly the same. The grading plan is pretty much exactly the same. I think we removed all grading that we had proposed off-site previously, and we're not doing any off-site grading as proposed on this plan, whereas before I think that was a part of the contentious items. So we re-looked at the grading and removed all off-site grading. As in regards to the street width, I think this is pretty much the standard streets that we're doing. I can't remember, but I feel like the one we did, what was that street? The 9 lot down there? Sindelar? Sindelar, I think that one is the same street width. I'd have to go back and look. It's actually a pretty wide street width. We're used to doing 37 or 39 foot streets. So something as wide as what we're proposing here actually is pretty big from what we're used to doing. 60 footers are more your standard collector streets, whereas interior residential streets can be much smaller than that. I'm not sure what other questions we need to, I think as in regards to asbestos, the soils report would have identified any asbestos. They'll have mitigation measures in the soils report, and the developer would have to follow the requirements of the soils report. And as Mr. Mays laid out, it would be involved the dust control permits. And then Randy would have to follow all requirements of that.
All right.
I don't really know that I have all that much more. It was summarized pretty well. I mean, we meet the zoning. We're not asking for any significant waivers. We're just here asking to develop what he rightfully can develop.
All right, well, I have a few questions. So regarding, and these are based a lot on the comments we've already heard, but regarding asbestos and the soil report, would that commonly be made available to the public, at least the surrounding residents?
Everything submitted to the city will be a public record.
And that would, of course, be submitted to the city.
You've had that for a long time, right? I think you guys had it before. I think they've had the soils report for 6 years.
So that's been done.
Oh, yeah.
Just on the previous tentative
We
map
were all the
stage.
way through. We had the improvement plans to Mylar. We had the final map ready to record. We were all the way done with this project when it stopped.
I see. Can you address some of the concerns regarding vibration, blasting versus picking, that sort of thing, and how, what can you say to help local residents feel a sense of comfort?
Fortunately, I just sit at my desk in my office. I don't know what he's gonna do out there. Do you want to address that? It would be much quicker if we could blast. I know that.
My name is Randy Shams. I live at 847 Da Vinci Cove. We usually use a ripper tooth on a track hoe and rips it and breaks it up, and so we don't get a whole lot of vibration whatsoever when we're ripping it up. And that, notoriously, because I did the hospital site, that breaks up really quite easily once you start going through it. If you apply water to it, a lot of water. And when I did Sindelar Court, same thing applied to that as well. Take a ripper tooth. It's not a hammer. It's a rip. Does it squeal? Yes, because you're going across rock. But at the end of the day, it all breaks up pretty fine. So, okay.
All right. Randy, while you're up, well, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Whichever of the two can address this. So we heard some concerns about wall height, and maybe I don't understand. So looking at the drawings, we see the retaining wall heights, top of footing, top of wall.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, are those figures for just the retaining portion and not the privacy portion?
Just the retaining portion.
Okay, thank you. And with regard to power, water, power, cable, things, phone, things are typically overhead. Those will all be underground.
Everything will be underground, correct.
In your facility. So the power lines that are running across the south edge of the property will be gone.
Yes, just as Jim Keene said, once the city gets it in, we're working currently with Lunas, Cox, everybody else they've designed to go through the subdivision, and they'll tie in, and I believe there's actually conduits have been put in place by the city for them to be following the same route that the power is going in. So then once that's all been done, then we'll just pull the poles straight out.
I see. Okay. With regard to the construction process, construction equipment, that sort of thing, there were concerns about construction equipment kind of moving through the residential areas surrounding the project. Can you address that a little bit?
Once we get started, pretty much all the equipment will stay on site unless we have haul off or we're bringing in sand to put around piping or anything like that, or block that that'd be about the most, because once your equipment's on site, we'll have water on site, because we'll put a stand tank with water going to it all the time, so you're not moving in and out of the site, you're actually just working on that site full time. You'll have block trucks bringing block as we're building the retaining walls, but pretty much everything stays on site other than the people that work and operate the equipment.
I see. And just to make sure that we understand, the final product will actually be lots for sale, not, in other words, you won't be building homes on these lots at this point.
That's
obviously,
correct.
Unless somebody hires you to build that home.
No. I retired from home building last year. I'm just, I have this property here, and I'm just want to develop some finished lots. There's a lot of interest in those lots because they like the location. And I bought it from our ex-mayor, Mr. Ferraro, and I've had it for quite a period of time. And so now we're at that stage, and the reason I put it on hold is a very good friend of mine got in a severe car accident, and so I had to operate his businesses for 2 to 3 years, and I just kind of let a lot of stuff go. And he made it through, but unfortunately I had to run his businesses for him. And so now we're ready to go forward again. I've been putting in conduits for the city, bringing power because it's coming all the way from Nevada Highway. It's going to go all the way down that alleyway behind on Avenue M, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to go all the way out to the other substation. Is that correct, Jim? That's where it's going to go. So, and then once we get it to our site, it'll go down the alleyway, and we're only stubbing with a 4-inch that'll provide for our subdivision. But the main power is going to go down that alleyway. And then it's going out to the new substation. So that's what we've been working on up by the Avenue I in Arizona. We're just bringing the conduits around because it's going to tie in. They're trying to get the loop done in town so you have less problems with power. So,
I think one last question, and going back to bedrock or rock removal. Can you give us a sense of about how much rock removal we're talking about versus, say, consolidated sands?
There'll be a fair bit of rock removal. We have to put good material around pipe zones. That's required by code. So whatever would normally go back into those trenches under standard material, that can't go back in. So we have to use type 2 or sands and stuff like that. But we will over-X anyway for people that come and build houses, so they won't have to do any hole ramming or anything like that. We'll over-X it and get it down far enough so sewer will run out. They don't have to. We'll pre-trench back on the houses where I know utilities come because utilities are preset. So
okay.
It's going to take a while. I'm not going to say it's not going to go quick. It's going to take a while because it is a hill. So.
I appreciate you bringing that up and not
much I can do about it.
If
I could snap my finger and be done overnight, I'd be more than happy to do that. But there's not much I can do with that.
Any rough sense, once final map is approved, any rough sense about how long it might take to?
The grading's probably going to take 8 to 10 months.
Okay.
And all the projects I've done in the past, we use a lot of water. I mean, we use so much water. It's incredible to keep the dust down and get good compaction anywhere. Anybody that's ever seen the projects I do, and we just don't have any issues with Clark County air quality or any of that. So we understand that dust is a critical thing. So
I appreciate that. While you're standing, any other questions? Any questions for the applicant?
Yes. In your report, you had estimated, 75,000 cubic yards of dirt to be removed. So that would be excluding rock material, and that's just the dirt end of it?
That's correct. It all, depends on how much shrinkage we get, because a lot of times you'll get shrinkage in when it gets wet and compact, so you utilize some of it up. We'll find out what the end number is going to be when we get down to that point, so.
And disposal is for that?
We either have to pay to haul it off, or sometimes the dump can use it for covering up trash, and we'll work something out with them, and because they need a lot of dirt out there all the time, and we'll see what we can do to work out something with them, but.
Thank you.
Mr. Biaski?
Yes, one question. What kind of wall material do you anticipate using for the retaining walls? Are you going to do like similar projects with the big granite boulders?
No, we decided to get away from that, just in that area, because the neighbors would not like me very much for that, because they do house a lot of snakes and stuff like that. And so, since it's somebody's backyard, we're going to use a stacking material. I'm working with a company out of Utah right now. As they're designing it, it'll be all third-party designed and work up. We found that in the past, the snakes just love those rockery walls. And so, by us not doing them there, so.
Is there any intent, and maybe I just couldn't tell it from the plans that were submitted, to put any kind of what I'd call a boundary wall on the backside property of, I guess it's La Plata?
Well, yeah, there will obviously it'll either be 6 foot of wrought iron or a 6 foot wall.
That is in your plan?
Yes, because I do not want anybody to get hurt either. I mean.
Okay. And in regard to that, a number of the questions I think that were raised, of course, had to do with damage that could occur to their properties during the construction period. Questions were raised about bonding and all that, which obviously is. How do you approach that from?
Well, I had already told Ray, the engineer, I'm more than happy to put a third-party home inspection, film the houses completely for where they're at today, and that way we know if there's any issues whatsoever in the future. I have no problem with doing that at all, because it actually helps me, because a lot of people I've found through construction defect, 8-9 years in, I got a bad light, and you caused it. Well, sometimes things go bad. I didn't cause it, so I'm more than happy to take care of that and hire a third party to go out there and do a full inspection on windows, stucco, walls, all that.
Okay.
And document it.
Obviously, that's not in the plan in any way. I'm not sure how we would document that. Is that even permissible, Susan, under our to address?
Yeah, my initial estimate is that would be beyond the scope of what the ordinance would allow the city to require. We can certainly check into that before it goes to the city council.
Mr. Chairman, I think that certainly this is the Planning Commission recommendation. You're recommending to the city council. If that's something that you want to condition it upon, you could add that as a condition.
Okay.
And the main thing is you're communicating that as a concern, a commitment by the developer to address.
That's what I was looking for. And similarly, I also heard the issue of rodents and pests and snakes. Any plan there that could help mitigate that during the construction period?
They're going to run there no matter what happens, whether I turn it up or they may run into the desert even further. Who knows? I can't put directions on them, and I don't plan on killing them. So, no, I mean, that's all I'm going to do is just start grading. We'll check it for, make sure there's no tortoises, because that's one of the things we have to do anyway. But snakes or scorpions, there's not much I can do about that.
Well, maybe I'm not fully understanding, but things like rodents, there are traps, of course, that could be set out there. I would think that might help that, at least at the boundaries to the properties. And perhaps some other kind of repellents or whatever. I'm just thinking in terms, they have some obvious concerns. You got children, you got all of that. Isn't not a possibility?
You know, I'm going to bring up a point. People are riding motorcycles across there. It's always getting stirred up, okay? Motorcycle, four-wheeler, stuff like that. I would think the rodents and bugs and stuff would be running right now with people running across there. No different than a piece of equipment running across there.
But in due deference to that comment, the fact is you're going to be going probably 8-10 hours a day with construction equipment, disturbing the soils, et cetera. That's not like a few motorcycles and
I get that.
RVs across the
I get that.
Okay, so that's my only.
Yes.
So I think it's a legitimate concern. Just wondering if there isn't a way you might
I've never
consider
had, and I've developed over 6,000 homes in my career. In all the projects I've done, I've never been able to figure out how you stop rodents from running and going in different directions. Okay? I mean, how do you do it? I mean, if anybody can give me an idea, I mean, you put a fence up and say, don't go in there. There's just no real way.
Related to, I'll leave that point for a moment. Related to your 8 to 10 months of construction, do you have any set hours you're going to be running? Because I would think one of the biggest issues is going to be the noise that's going to be occurring because of the nature of your working on granite.
We have to follow the city guidelines on that. You can't start anything up till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Apologize.
And we usually have to be shut down by, I believe, 5:30 in the evening.
Okay, so there it is.
Yes.
Okay, well, didn't know that. Thank you. Maybe one other thought, and I'm not even sure it's. It has to do with the traffic issues that some of the people raised. Is there not, let's say, back road access through that? I guess it's the city land, but isn't there back road access directly to Nevada Way?
Not that I'm aware of. If there is, I'd surely love to use it, but I think it goes straight down. Isn't that right? Yeah, because that's one of the issues. We get to the top, and then it starts heading down a big cliff toward, into a valley.
Okay. Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Bonner. Ms. Bonner.
Hi. What geotech civil engineering firm did you work with related to the grading?
It's a company called Geotech.
Thanks. That's all I had.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right.
You good?
Thank you I believe so. So at this point, we'll open this back up for a public hearing on this one item. Anyone who wishes to be heard, please step forward, state your name.
Hi, Donald McGregor, 310 La Plata Place. Just a couple of things. Mr. Sham has kindly volunteered to do two things. One, to come into houses, videotape them, and ensure that no property is done, damage is done to the property. The second thing is he's willing to put up a third-party bond to protect the interest of the homeowners. Since he's volunteered to do that, I would ask that you make that as a condition for the city council as a recommendation. He's saying that he's willing to do those things, so I don't think it's an undue hardship. And the final thing I'd say is I'm the gentleman who spoke first, requesting some consideration with regards to the height of the walls, because when you get finally through with a homeowner going in and another 6-foot fence. It's a 24-foot high retaining area at my backyard. So I would ask you to give further consideration to that. And the final thing is that I'm not sure what the code is today, and I'm not sure what the engineer has planned, but in terms of retaining walls, something needs to be done in terms of drainage of water and some kind of backing to this wall, because if you go down the end of Utah to Adams at Del Prado, and you look at the cinder block wall that's there, there's a tremendous amount of seepage coming through, and it's just a matter of time before something gives way. It might not happen in my lifetime, but if you look at the seepage that's coming through those walls, it's going to give way at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Shams again. I did not commit to a bond. I committed to photographing and documenting all that. Okay, I just want to make that real clear. The only bond I will submit is to the city for the requirements of the utilities. Okay?
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. Additional comments?
Hi, how you doing? My name's James Reisher, 308 La Plata Place.
Could you repeat that slower so we can
Sorry about that. James Reisher, 308 La Plata Place. The idea of a ripper going through there easily and tearing up that soil sounds like a great thing. We just had a neighbor put in a pool recently, and they were using hoe rams to get through the granite. It's all granite based back there. There was some cracked drywall at another neighbor's house from that hoe ram already. What's the reassurance of damage that's going to be done to our house? If it does happen, what do we do about that? Just like who pays for that? I mean, is it insurance or something that takes care of this? Or?
Let me address this for all commenters. We're not allowed to engage in a question and answer session at this moment, but following the comments, so please feel free to ask questions. They'll be recorded. And I think following the comments, if I'm not mistaken, city staff and even the applicant will have an opportunity again to address.
Okay. And another thing is my house is one of the many houses, I think 3 houses that are not tied into city power yet. It's getting hot out. I don't know how long that process takes to switch over. I don't even have wire in my conduit. The conduit's there. There's no wire pulled to my panel, nothing like that. My wife works from home. You know, that's one of my issues. The void space between the 2 retaining walls, is that going to be backfilled? Is that going to be a place where homeless people can live? Because we do have a lot of homeless people back there in that area. And then possibly if we could get the easement removed from our side and put onto his side. Then we could get our 10-foot easement back on our property. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Vern Stewart. I live at 306 La Plata Place. And I think Mr. Shams is right on about taking photographs with our property inside and out. I'll agree to that completely. But I would like to have a third-party insurance bond on it, because I know that if I had to go to Shams to get it, in 2016 I tried to talk to him and he would never answer his phone. He would never meet with me. I know for a fact that if I had a third-party insurance company, I wouldn't have to deal with Mr. Shams on that. I could just call the insurance company, have an insurance agent come out, look at the property, find out with the pictures, and then take care of it. My other problem is, like Susan said, this started in 2016. In 2016, the city came to me, asked me if I could sign an easement right over for the front of my property so they could run underground utilities. At that time, I told them I would if they would sign their easement over to me in the back, because they're going to take the utility poles out. They said they would get back to me. When they started the underground work in the front, they asked me for permission to go on my property to run the conduit to my house. Scott Hansen at that time, that worked for the city, came up to my door, asked me if he could move the conduit from the back of my home to the front of my home. And I told him, yeah, that's fine with me, I don't mind. I still haven't got the electrical run to my house. Cox Cable came in afterwards, they ran their cable. I have CenturyLink fiber optics running in my home that's still on the power pole. I called CenturyLink in 2018. At that time, they told me the city never notified them when they were doing the underground. They said they will not put it in unless somebody pays for it. And I told them I'm not gonna pay for it. So now I'm stuck. I don't know if I'm gonna get Cox. If I have to take Cox, I don't want Cox. I want CenturyLink. I want to keep that fiber optics. So if if he has to remove the poles, then I'm going to have to figure out something on CenturyLink. If I can keep the poles there and CenturyLink on it, with the power, I still have power. So if I can get the easement taken away from my side of the property and put on his side of the property, that'll give me at least 10 feet. Then I'll have my 18-foot block wall on his property. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Crafton of 531 Avenue M. There was two concerns that I have. The first concern is that we didn't do a traffic study. I know the city engineer spoke that when they did the storybook homes, they did a traffic study and, well, it's about 15 or whatever, but this is a completely different area than where the storybook homes are, and it would be interesting to see if there was something that would come from a traffic study. I have the back of my property, which has the alleyway, and if Mr. Sham's people are going to be using this area or Arizona or Avenue M or Northridge, it would be interesting to see that once the land is completed, if people are going to be coming through there, how it is going to affect the general area of Wyoming, Avenue M, and Arizona. Even though it's only 15 cars, as we are to assume, since no traffic study was done, will it exponentially increase more traffic that's coming in to visit or what have you? The big concern of mine is that alleyway, because as the gentleman said earlier, in the very beginning, it's like a blind corner. And people do ride their bikes and walk their dogs, myself included. And if we add more traffic to the thoroughfare in the alley, which is not necessarily a main street, then it concerns me that something's going to happen. And so I think some kind of traffic study should be done that assesses what these 15 houses will specifically do to this specific area, which is separate from the storybook area altogether. The second thing is, I'm sure anybody on La Plata, Northridge, Avenue M in Arizona doesn't want construction trucks coming through for the next 10 months. But it would seem that there should be some type of organization so we know where these trucks are coming in and going out. Instead of them being able to just go down Northridge Avenue M in Arizona, I'm sure I don't want them coming down Avenue M, but why can't we create some plan that says the trucks come in on this street and they go out on this street, whether it's the same one or a different one, so at least we all know where this is going so they're not coming down 3 different streets and an alleyway. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike Morton, Avenue I. And I just want to reiterate some of the things he just said. And I want to mention something the city planner mentioned earlier in regards to topography. She said this property was not normal. It's not a normal property. It's not like storybook homes where it goes out to a major arterial. This is a tiny little tight neighborhood. This project is getting packed into an existing neighborhood. If you guys go, I encourage you to go look at what we're all talking about. I think the project needs further study. I think that he should provide some more planning about the flow of construction vehicles. Even it was mentioned that it's the obligation of the city to provide notification of 300 feet away from this project. But the neighborhood's tight, like I said earlier. Arizona, M Street, K Street, L Street, I Street are just as affected as Northridge and Wyoming and M Street, you know? So I think that this whole traffic flow, the noise level, it should be looked at and addressed. And I think he needs to come up with some more details for you guys to make an approval. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Stuart Adams, 540 Avenue M. As mentioned, yes, the ingress and egress of this development, as mentioned about Nevada Highway, yeah, there are big caverns, big ravines down there that does not seem plausible at this time. But yeah, but in the future, there needs to be some sort of a better way to get into these properties that we're approving. I understand that at the end of River Mountain, there may be some development down there at some point. Yes, you have Wyoming, you have Adams, but something like this, yeah, I was hoping if we could get to Nevada Highway, I know Randy would like that too, but we can't, and so it makes for bad planning to send everything down our way. Also, it was brought up by the engineer that it was a contentious moment, I guess, regarding off-site grading. I wouldn't even understand how that would even come into become a problem. I would assume that there would be no off-site grading. I'm not sure how that, but it brought to my mind that I don't even think we want like a haul road or anything. I don't think, there should be any vehicles or any kind of equipment or anything outside of that footprint of the development. There's no sense. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? All right, let's move to folks that may be watching on the live streaming. Again, with the delay, we'll wait a minute. So if you have comments from the virtual audience, the number to call in is 702-589-9629. Thank you.
Hello, my name is...
Hold for 1
I'm sorry.
minute. We're actually waiting on comments from virtual
pardon me.
viewers.
I thought it was still okay.
Public comment.
Hi there, my name is Camilla Ariati. I have a question, just pure curiosity. Like, I know that a lot of people on the lake side, when it comes to private property, their views of the lake are protected in terms of two-story houses versus a one-story house and wall height, et cetera. What are the city ordinances in protecting private individuals who own property, who purchase their property because they have a desert view that they're going to now lose because of the topography of the land and the proposed walls that will be built? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we can reopen the public hearing just for one gentleman who,
I'll try and be quick in case someone else calls in. I just wanted to mention real quick, I don't know if anyone else did, but when the developer developed the old hospital site, once the site was developed...
I'm sorry.
Pardon?
I've just been reminded, please state your name.
Ray Turner. I'm sorry if I didn't.
Thank you.
Ray
And
Turner.
address, thank you.
I just wanted to remind people that that site was developed, and it was demolished, and then it was a big hill of dirt for a good at least 4 years, blowing all over the neighborhood. And I have a lot of friends and a lot of people that live over there, and it was just a constant complaint that I was hearing. People were saying, you know, why doesn't the city do something about that? And how dare he do this to us? And he promised us that he was going to build these beautiful homes and it was going to increase our property values and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I don't believe anything that comes out of the man's mouth, to be honest with you. So I would just like to remind people of the disrespect that I feel that this man has shown to the surrounding community. And I would urge you all, commissioners, to be, you know, very studious of everything that's going on here and think of the people that are going to be affected and any kind of measures that you can put in there to prevent what he's already done to the community from happening again, just down the street. I would encourage you to consider everything you can do to make sure that doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we close the public hearing on this item. And I'd like to see if city staff and then the applicant could, in fact, address some of these concerns that came up in this last round of questions. Is that something allowable? So some of the, if I can summarize, at least what I was able to capture, some of the concerns had to do with an insurance, and this only addressed the questions that pertain insurance bond, seepage relating to retaining walls, backfill between the walls and potential for homeless. I think the city questions about easements, front and rear, and then utilities, most specifically fiber optics on the pole. And lastly, the feasibility or necessity for a traffic study, and then also a construction traffic plan. Susan, Michael, are any of those in your bailiwick?
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the ones, and it's probably one of the last questions, so let's start with a response to that. The question was, what protections do people have if they live adjacent to vacant land and protecting their views? I think what they were referring to with respect to Lakeside is that Lakeside, there are HOA covenants and restrictions. These are private restrictions regarding how views can be obstructed. The city does not have any regulations with respect to that. What we have are the bulk regulations. So we say maximum of 2-story height. We say that homes have to have certain setbacks. And so that's how the city regulates it. We don't have anything that regulates protecting views.
All right.
I'll address one item. The person who asked if homeless people could be living between the walls. The way the double retaining walls will be is it's not like there will be a canyon with walls on either side. The lower retaining wall will come up and then bench back 6 feet to the next retaining wall. So it'd be impossible for anybody to hide there, because that area will be in full view to the neighbors on La Plata Place. And as for the questions about easements and power, I think Public Works is going to have to try to address that.
Thank you.
Jim Keene, city engineer. Yes, when this project started 6 years ago, we started working on relocating the electric into La Plata Place. We did hook up 2 houses and we have 3 more to go. We put that project on hold when this project went on hold because we figured if it never happens, we don't need to do it. So that's why we didn't work on it. We have, to be completely honest, plenty of other projects to work on as well. Now that this is back in the works, we've assigned one of our engineering technicians to be in this process again, finish those last 3 houses. I did speak with the one homeowner about the easement in the backyard, and I told him, yes, we would work on abandoning that 10-foot easement in his backyard in exchange for the other one. It all went on hold when the project went on hold.
All right. Let's see. Is there any thoughts on the part of the city regarding, I know you addressed it earlier, but regarding a traffic study or like construction traffic plan?
Oh, that'll let you guys talk about.
Ray Fredrickson, Performance Engineering. While I'm sitting here, I was looking at some of the calculations. So ITE Transportation Manual is what we go to determine traffic for developments. Single family home in the PM peak hour is 1 trip per house. And that's 63% of those trips are coming in and the other 37% are coming out. So basically you're gonna have 9 cars coming into 15 homes over an hour period. So I didn't do the math on that, but 1 car every 5-8 minutes, something like that. And you're gonna have 6 leaving. So we don't do traffic studies on projects of this size just for that reason. If you guys condition us to do a traffic study, we're gonna have people count cars and I'm gonna run through the analysis and the impact on the existing traffic is gonna be so minimal with 1 car every 15 minutes or 2 cars every 15 minutes that it's not gonna change any of the results. And for the most part, all your streets, until you get to the main streets, are stop signs. So literally, if we do a traffic study, whatever the existing traffic counts are, results are, is what you're gonna see if you do, once we add the traffic. I'm not talking about circulation, that's a different issue, or the streets being too narrow, stuff like that. That's a different kind of thing. A traffic study in my mind is, you count the existing traffic in, I don't know, what would you say, 4 streets, maybe 4 neighboring intersections. We would count that. I would distribute the traffic through those streets, which in this case is gonna be really easy, and we kick out results. We don't really go into whether this street needs to be widened or this street needs to be, reduced or traffic calming. Those get into much more complicated traffic studies. But the main point is, like, anywhere, if your project doesn't generate 100 peak hour trips, we don't do a traffic study. At least that's what we're used to.
So at this point, in essence, these results or the figures that you've described and that Mr. Keene has described are from well-documented manuals, engineering manuals that are used nationwide. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's correct.
And
Institute of Transportation Engineers Manual.
Okay. And so these studies have been performed, studies that result in the guidance figures have been performed kind of nationwide. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's correct. And I've even been part of doing some. I mean, there's so many housing developments now that that's well established. I mean, I don't know the numbers, probably in the thousands. They've analyzed thousands of single-family residential developments and created those calculations that we work off of. Something like I just did an enterprise rental, truck rental, that had none. So we had to go to 3 different sites and figure out how much traffic that generated. But single-family homes is well established, so we're using data from years and years and years and years.
All right. Thank you. As far as seepage, we've heard a couple of concerns regarding seepage and future damage to the retaining walls. Can you address that?
Yeah, retaining walls are designed a lot differently now. We have to put a waterproof barrier on the back. They'll be designed by a third party. I don't design retaining walls, but a structural engineer will design the retaining walls, but they have a waterproofing membrane on the back, and you got seepage holes. Sometimes they run a drain at the bottom with the backfill. So it's a lot more advanced than older walls. But it'll have to be designed that way.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could interject, those plans prepared by a structural engineer are submitted as part of the permit for those walls. And they're reviewed by our staff and our consulting engineer to ensure that it's structurally sound, that it's addressing drainage concerns, and will not be approved unless it meets those code requirements.
Thank you. So I'm going to open it up to the commission if there are other questions of the applicant at this point. Tom?
Just a question regarding the dust control and the watering. The other gentleman mentions lots of water for that process. How does that shake out in terms of the drainage to the area below during construction?
Oh, well, they'll have to follow the BMP practices, like not the BMP, but the best management practices for stormwater pollution prevention. So he'll have to put like the sandbags and the hay bales, and it's not allowed to just go willy-nilly. It has to follow, the historic path of flow.
Any other questions at this point? Nay. Did you say you do? Oh, none. Seeing none, I think that ends the public comment, question and answer session. And with that, we bring it back to the Planning Commission for your thoughts and ultimately a motion to either recommend or deny this tentative map. Any thoughts, any discussion? Does anyone want to kick this off?
Mr. Chairman, being that this tentative map is in substantial conformance with the previous tentative map that was approved, I don't see any reason for us to recommend denial. And with that, I move to approve Resolution 1211, which includes findings and conditions for a recommendation in favor of the tentative map for BC number 114, including the requested exceptions. Thank you, Susan.
There was a modified resolution for only one exception provided to you.
That's right, you sent. Let's amend it to just the one exception that we amended it to. That it does not match the existing right-of-way widths for the new street extensions.
A second is needed for purposes of discussion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have a comment on the question and of course we want to have some discussion at this point, but within your motion, would you entertain the kind of the commitment that RPS made regarding an initial home assessment or inspection?
I believe we were instructed that was outside the city's scope of jurisdiction, wasn't it?
No, I think we were instructed that that would be a condition that would be allowable on a recommendation. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what I heard.
At this point, because this is a recommendation, you can recommend whatever conditions you feel are appropriate. We would run those by the city attorney before it goes to city council to find out what the city has authorization to impose or not.
Very good. I'd like to add that. Do you have an issue with that?
I mean, if the city attorney approves it, then I don't see any additional liability. I've known of Randy for the better part of 20 years, and he's a man of his word, despite what Ray Turner says.
Let's not bring personalities into this. All right, so.
Mr. Chairman, if he is all right with that, I also need the second to confirm that.
Second.
As long as the city attorney is okay with it, then I'm okay with it.
Okay, I'll second that too then.
All right, so what we're recommending for the rest of the commission is that Mr. Shams would agree to perform an initial inspection, both for his protection and I think for the comfort of the homeowners, and recognizing that as a recommendation to city council, city staff, city attorney may say that that we are not within our purview to put that in the recommendation. However, we can move it forward with that addition to the recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, just point of clarification, I believe what the developer agreed to is agreeing to pay for a third-party inspection, not that he would be doing the inspections.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification, and that is how we would need to write it up, I believe. Other thoughts and comments?
Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure I understand. So right now, we have a motion and a second that's been modified to add a recommendation to City Council that, as Mr. Sham has stated, he would commit to a third-party photo inspection of the homes as a baseline before the work started. That is, in fact, what the motion on the floor is. Okay.
That's how I understand it.
My only other comment is it would have been nice to have had a discussion before we jumped into a motion.
Right.
But we'll proceed with the
Mr. Chairman, this is independent of the recommendation motion, correct? This is just the separate thing that we're dealing with right now, not the entire motion as outlined there.
I'm not sure.
It's the entire motion with the width of the streets added and the recommendation that you hire a third party for inspections.
So it is the motion for approval, is that what you're saying? That's where we're at?
It is the motion.
It's a motion.
With an amendment.
Correct. It's a motion to approve the resolution, which in itself is a recommendation to city council. And that would be for the amended resolution presented tonight, for one exception, with an added recommended condition that the developer pay for a third-party inspection of abutting properties, prior to work beginning on the project.
Okay, so at this juncture, we have no opportunity for discussion, is that correct?
Well,
do have opportunity for discussion, and we may yet modify the motion.
I don't want to jump in. We haven't voted on it, so
correct.
We can still discuss it.
Could you get your microphone, please?
I apologize. We can still discuss at this point. The motion has not been voted on, right? That's all.
Correct.
So starting with you, Tom.
With that, I have a question for staff, and it goes back to the 2016 approval. And I guess it's my, just a need of clarification. The vote on that development, you had 2 abstentions and you had 2 absences, and you only had 3 people voting on it. So what I would like is a clarification regarding votes on the planning commission, where you have only 3 people voting.
Well, I'm sorry, you mean the current, your vote tonight?
Any vote.
It's a quorum of those present. And if you have a quorum present, then it's a majority of the people present who vote.
But see, you had 2 abstentions, so you didn't have you only had 3 people voting that were in the meeting.
There were 5 people present.
Yes.
That just because people abstained doesn't mean that the quorum went away.
Okay, so that, the clarification then for me is that you can pass on 3 votes.
If there are 5, if there's a quorum present, yes.
Right, okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Biaski, any thoughts and comments?
Actually, I don't specifically have any others at this point, although I just think it would have been good to have had an opportunity to have some discussion of the merits of this and some of the issues. I believe, in fact, almost everything has been answered. I think the plan as it has been put forward does comply with everything. I mean, it is just a restatement of the plan that's been previously presented and approved with some minor things. However, I would have liked the opportunity to have also addressed that issue that did finally get addressed. So I have no further comment from my standpoint.
Thank you. Does anyone else have comments, concerns, considerations that we should bring forward at this point? Well, we have a motion and a second. It's time for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you. 1 opposed. With that, the motion passes. And thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the audience, this will still go forward to the City Council, and the same property owners within 300 feet will be notified for that meeting as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Just to restate, this was only the recommendation to City Council. With that, we move on to agenda item number 4, allotments. I'm
No
sorry.
comment.
I'm sorry, that was agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 4 is a final public comment period. I am going to presume that nobody in the audience is going to provide comments, general comments, so to the virtual audience, please call with any comments 02-589-9629. Hearing no comments, we'll close the final public comment period and what? Oh, Madam City Clerk, please.
This comment was submitted by Brian Keller regarding baseball field versus dog park. The city will not allow children to play baseball on baseball field, but they will turn a baseball field into a dog park. Dogs are more important than children.
Thank you very much. We hereby close the public comment period of this meeting, and we bring the Planning Commission meeting of May 18th to a close. Thank you.